Howdy, everyone. I hope everyone has had a great evening today and is enjoying this nice weather that we've had last couple of days. And I hope everyone here had a great Thanksgiving. I know we're all thankful for the nice rain we had here in Melvin, and it's nice and wet out there, and it's a good time to relax and it's a good time to talk about this orientation that we're about to get started here with. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, back during our first part of our orientation, um, uh, during our training program, I went over the mission statement, and that the Heart of Texas Wildlife is a nonprofit organization, which provides a high quality experience for all youth. It develops an environment that is safe, inclusive and informative. It fosters individual growth and learning, the principles of hunting and how to implement effective conservation practices, for wildlife habitats. Today, we're going to be focusing on the essential training that is important to the functioning of this camp. Um, and it's important to keep in mind that our main priority is the kids. In that is to keep the kids safe, during all activities, during and uh, it's not only the kids, but it's also the volunteers, and the staff. Um, these trainings are very essential, um, and, um, it's beneficial to have. You know, we're going to be going over some ADA equipment protocol, learn how to properly transfer youth. And then what I mean by transferring, it's, lifting them up, out of their chair into a track chair or from a track chair into a boat, um, for duck hunting or fishing, or, even transfer them out of a a tree blind or what have you, or um, if a vulture dies out there in the field and you get them into a gate, or we're going to talk about how to properly transfer them, the different equipment that we have to transfer the youth from what I'm going to call point A and point B, referring back to from where they are currently in their chair or from um, a different seat. So, and then we're going to talk a little bit about emergency procedures. What does that look like? How do we prepare for it? And you know, and we'll go from there. But let's take a look at this ADA equipment protocol. I mean, it's understanding the differences between, first of all, the difference between the different types of power wheelchairs. I mean, there's a lot of different chairs out there on the market that serve different, functions and capabilities. And, over here at the ranch, we have several, as I mentioned before in the previous training, lesson plan, and we have several off-road capable power wheelchairs. These chairs were designed to be rugged, to handle any type of terrain, whether that be snow, mud, um, heavy rocket areas. I mean, hills and brush, and I mean, you name it, it can take care of it. And not to mention the capability part of these chairs. I mean, they can basically tow out a deer. They have a little bit of torque in them, so I believe it's around 200, about 275 worth of pounds they can pull. Is this a rugged chair? Versus uh, you know, a Permobil, which move on this side here so y'all can visually see it. The Permobil to the right, it's more of an indoor friendly type of chair that is made to be indoors. And I mean, this chair can go outdoors. It can go over small rocks and caliche and, pavement, grass and stuff. But you get it in the mud or the snow or the hilly country, as we have out here, it's not going to do too well. It's going to be a rough ride compared to a track chair that has, you know, tracks on it like a skid steer. That it's made to handle rough stuff. Um, and going back to uh, you know, the functionality of it. I mean, the rugged track chair is made for outdoors. It's just a beast. It's like a tank. It's just built strong, low maintenance. The only thing that you have to do with this chair is to make sure it's charged every day. Rain doesn't really matter with it. It can get wet. Um, it can get mud on it. It's like a small skid steer, basically. It's got to put some gas in. It's good to go. Other than, this doesn't use gas. That was just the illustration. But, making sure it has a reliable charging port. The charging port needs to be clear of debris. If that's clear, it's good to go. It's not much to do with it. As for the Permanbill, I mean, it requires a little bit more attention. It's a little bit more delicate. It's known as a Ferrari of wheelchairs. These chairs, they can recline back. They can also stretch out like a bed that relieves tension off people's lower back and the buttocks area. It prevents pressure sores. It also has Bluetooth capability where you can operate your computer. You can operate the TV. You can operate just about anything with these chairs. It's amazing what they can do. They also have lighting capability, but the track chair also has a lighting deal. But we're not going to go too much into the specs of it, but as y'all can see, this is a different type of chair, but the Permanbill, some of these kids that are going to come to the ranch will more than likely be driving a Permanbill type of chair. It's really common to see in today's market and disabled world. But the bearings, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but the bearings where the wheelbase are, you need to make sure those are tight. And grease for some WD-40. They have a tendency to get tightened up a little bit, and it can cause a little jerking when you're driving around. So you need to check that, make sure the chair stays dry, it can't get wet. It can, but not for a long, extended period of time. And what I mean by long, extended period of time is more than 5 hours constantly getting soaked. It just can't handle it. You're going to have functionality problems in the control box where the chair just shuts off, and you have to get it dry. Basically, put the whole control box, the joystick, and a bag of rice to get it dry. And it also needs to be charged every night. So, needless to say, if it's raining outside when the kids are here, it's best to put them in a track chair or keep them indoors during that time until it stops raining, because it won't be good if their chair gets wet. They won't be able to move around very well. So, also, checking for debris in the charging portal. Even though it's not getting out there in the brush country, dust still can collect a little bit in there, and you make sure that's cleaned out. The best way to clean them out is by using a little rag with a little bit of Windex works well. You can even get a Q-tip and kind of mess around with it and get some of that debris out of there as well. It's not much, not as much as you'll see on the track chair. You'll have a glob of mud stuck up in there, and it takes a little bit more time to get out. You know, but yeah, okay. So I mean, how to properly, operate different type of equipment. Going back to this last bullet point here for ADA equipment protocol. Here at the ranch, we have several different types of ADA equipment that are state of the art. During the training this week, you all will be expected to memorize, each of the equipment operating manuals, and be able to demonstrate how to work it. Our trained staff will teach you how to fix a malfunction if it should occur, during an operation, which I promise you it will occur one way or another. Something always breaks down or have a button issue or something, but don't worry about it. We'll teach you how to overcome that little obstacle and move on with it. But let's talk a little bit about learning how to properly transfer youth, and I really want y'all to hone in on this. This is important. We have several Hoyer lifts. A Hoyer lift is basically a type of equipment. I'm going to move on to the next slide so y'all can see what I'm talking about here. It's a metal structure that basically lifts up an adult or a child with a sling, as you can see on the picture to the left. This is a manual Hoyer lift, by the way. And these legs will go in between a power wheelchair. You can roll it out fairly easy. It's very maneuverable, and you can go over the legs can go under a bed or go back to a different type of chair or anywhere, really. These are just really nice equipment to transfer people with. They're the easiest and most efficient way to transfer the youth, out of their chair, is by using one of these Hoyer lifts. The equipment, ensures that the individual is comfortable during transportation, from the chair to another chair, or from a chair to a bed, or from the bed to the chair, or from a gator to a chair, or from the chair to a boating, area for fishing. And there's two types of Hoyer lifts. You have the manual, which is you have the manual and you have the electric, as you can see right here. They're both similar in appearances. There's not much difference in between them, and they have the same capability, for transferring. The only difference, that you really have, is the operation, part of it, the aspect of it. The manual over here to the left is operated by a hydraulic system, which basically you have to crank a little lever to lift up the person, and it has a little screw valve that you slowly, descend the person down, or release them down, so to say. Whereas your electric, you have this big battery operated system right here that's very nice, and it's remote operated. You push up to go up, push down to go down. It's it's less demanding, for a person to use. It's more friendly, easier. The electric is. It's a little bit more finicky, though. Being out there in the weather and the elements, you can't really get the battery box wet because it's going to have a little bit of malfunctioning, and getting water in there when it's raining, it's a pain to deal with. But the manual hydraulic system, it can get out there in the rain. It's fine. It's almost a weatherproof lifting system. we recommend using these two different type of systems for the youth. It just ensures that they stay comfortable during transportation from one point to another. If it's raining outside, use the manual. It's not that much effort to crank it up. It takes a couple of pumps to get them off their seat. But it's fairly simple to use, which our staff will show you how to use it. And when you're indoors or if it's not raining, y'all can use the electric one. Talking about other types of transfer, and this is, I don't want to say not to ever use it. But there's times where you don't have a choice. You have a 1 versus 2 person transfer. So the one person transfer is well, let me back up here a little bit. At the ranch here, we recommend always using a Hoyer lift. Okay. But in an event of an emergency, or a malfunction, and you're not going to get this all the time. The manual Hoyer lift is pretty sound. It's built like a good piece of equipment. It's not going to break down. And if it does, it's very rare that will occur. But in the case that it does, a volunteer or a staff member can transfer a child. Okay. However, we really recommend, not recommend, but we want you, to ask before grabbing. And what I mean by grabbing is just like picking them up by the waist and, put them into a different chair. Well, you don't want to do that with someone who has scoliosis. You can damage them or bruise them or, heaven forbid, break a rib. You just don't do that. You want to have that dialogue with them first. You want to say, hey, if I grab you underneath your legs and put my hand behind your back, is that going to be okay? And, you pick up their knees, and you place your right arm underneath their knees, and you place your left arm around their back, kind of like a cradle position, for 1 person transfer. And you gently lift up and you ask the person, does this feel okay? And if they say yes, then continue. If they say no, then you want to gently place them back down, gently release your right arm from underneath your legs. Don't yank it out. You don't want to do that. Just gently pull out, gently place your arm back around, and ask them, are you okay? And then get a second person to help you do a transfer. The last thing that we want is to, grab an area that is sensitive. Some of these kids have scoliosis surgery and their backs are, sensitive to the touch. The rod it's not bendable. So, they can't move a whole lot when you're trying to move them and you're pulling on them and you can, bruise them or, heaven forbid, cause an injury. There's several different types of 1 person transfers. The most common that you'll probably see here at the ranch is a cradle position. However, we've had a couple of people to use a board transfer. Most of these people have upper body strength in their arms, as you can see in the picture to the right here. It's basically an oak piece of wood that is really smooth that you place on the side of a bed or a different chair or a pickup truck or a gator seat, and you place it right beside their chair, and they're able to kind of pivot themselves with a little bit of assistance. As you can see, this person gently helping them slide as he's pulling himself across the sit. We have a couple of people who are able to do this maneuver, but 95% of the kids that we have coming here will not be able to do this type of maneuver. So you're going to have to be physically able to lift, at least 100, 200 pounds. Most of the time, it's going to be around 100 to 150. But you will have that chance to practice that. And a two-person transfer, in the case of an individual who's not comfortable and you lift them on by yourself, due to discomfort, a one person, as you can see in this picture here, this is a really good illustration of this lady right here grabbing this girl. You place your arms underneath their armpits. Then you have one person who grabs her knees. And then you lift up simultaneously and you place them into the bed or a different chair or pickup truck. This is interesting. It's going to be a little harder. I recommend, if a Hoyer's not working, not to put someone into a pickup truck. I would recommend, if you're out there in the field and a track chair breaks down and the manual lift's not working, which it's not going to happen. But in the case if it does, okay, it's not going to be very comfortable if the person or the child doesn't want you to lift them up in a cradle position with one person due to discomfort. A two-person transfer into a pickup truck is not a big enough space to place them in there. So in this scenario, I recommend going back to the ranch and grabbing another track chair, hauling it out there, unloading it, placing them in there, and then walking back with them to base. Put them in the, you said, well, why couldn't we put them in the gator? Okay. That would work. But if, in the case of, they don't want you lifting them, okay, it's maneuvering them over the seat, with the Hoyer not working. It could be discomforting to them. So that's why I say go back and get a different chair and place them in that. As always your best option. But a two-person transfer, in my mind, is always best than one-person transfer. It's more comfortable. It's also less physically demanding for volunteers or staff people, for our staff to conduct on their own. And overall, I mean, it's just, it's just easier. But, but yeah, we'll go over all that during our training this week. And the staff will talk a little bit more about that. But let's, I don't want to keep y'all too long. I know I've been talking for a hot minute here, but let's, talk a little bit about the emergency procedures. Initiate, first aid. Before y'all all arrived here, you should have, or I hope y'all have, completed a first aid training course and received y'all certificate. It's a mandatory requirement in order to be a volunteer here to have. It's always good to know how to, help someone in need, and especially when you're dealing with kids who have a severe disability. You're going to practice all this during your mock training course. And secondly, to call 911. And, after, calling 911, after initiating, first aid, it's, I don't want to say it's, it's mandatory. I'm going to put it as mandatory, okay? I don't want there to be any confusion. That we take it seriously. To call, medical personnel, just to come out to the ranch and, even though it may be a minor deal, okay? Even if a child was, coughing on a piece of meat or something, and you pound them roughly on the back or the chest, and you get that piece of meat up, or you stick your fingers in there and you grab it and get it out. Okay. And they say, well, it's okay now. Well, no, it might not be okay. Some of these kiddos, are, uh, you know, have a tendency to aspirate. So you need to call 911 and have a medical personnel come out and check them and make sure everything's okay, and let them make the call, um, if uh, if they need to seek, further medical attention. Because I mean, the last thing we want is for this person to wake up the next morning and they have congestion. And you think, well, it might be the dust. No, it's not the dust. If they have a tendency to aspirate, this develops into pneumonia. And then that pneumonia could kill them. And you don't want that. We don't want that. So, uh, it's best not to go down that route. So I'm going to make that mandatory to y'all, just to be clear, and eliminate any confusion that we may have. And thirdly, call the parents or guardians. Okay, and this is anything. I don't care if, and I'm gonna make up a name here, but little Johnny falls out of his chair. If little Johnny fell out of his chair and you pick him up, or get a warrior and lift him up with a sling, uh, call up his mom or his dad, or whoever's taking care of him, and let them know what happened. And that's just having that responsibility on our part. And if the parent wants to take little Johnny home, fear that won't he has a bruise or a cut or whatever, and they feel safer with him being home with them, that's okay. That's fine. But we need to let them know what happened. Even if little Johnny says, I'm fine, don't call, yada yada, they're still a minor. It's not their choice, it's not their decision. We still call them, and if they want them to be checked out by a medical personnel, we can most certainly do that as well. We have a medical staff personnel on site there when the youth arrive, and they can check them and make sure everything's okay for minor instances like this. But yes, we're gonna call the parents and the guardians, and also report this to your I'm gonna call your chain of command. So your volunteer administrator or your staff lead, I want you to tell them, hey, so and so happened, and we'll do the calling. You don't ever have to call as volunteers. Okay. And moving on to required training. Okay. So our required training is that you must be able to effectively pass a mock training course. Okay. During this week, on Friday, you all will be put through a training course that will consist of initiating first aid, transferring by yourself, and with a fellow partner in this room. So, I see y'all sitting here, some of y'all know each other, but that's all good. I want y'all to, pick a buddy, so to say, and that'll be your partner to help you do a two-person transfer, and communicate accordingly. Y'all will also have to operate, ADA equipment, and then verbally communicate, how to operate that medical device. So not just physically grabbing it and showing me, but standing there and saying, okay, this is the manual Hoyer lift. Tell me how to work it verbally. If you can tell me verbally how to work it, you know how to work it. It's in your memory. And from your memory, initiates your ability to do it physically. Okay. y'all will also have to take a written exam as well. And this is a fairly large test that consists of multiple choice, true and false, fill in the blank, and the essay portion. Okay. Um, y'all maybe, I see some of y'all here, y'all are kind of looking at you like, well, I thought this is crazy. And I know how this may sound. I know this sounds extreme, but referring back to our mission, which is safety, of our youth, that's our number one priority is their safety. And I mean, it should be your focus, your main focus, and your priority as well. Okay. To put their safety above yourself, and your safety, it matters too. But you have to know how to help them because, they're not like anybody else. They have a muscle disease, they have a bone disease, they have a disorder that they can easily be bruised or break a bone. You don't want to hurt them, and I know y'all mean well or y'all won't be here, and y'all all have to pass with 100% completion. However, talking with the staff about this, y'all can take any course up to 3 times. After your 3rd time, if you're not successfully able to pass it, there's a remedial training deal that y'all can retake and then apply for next year's camp. And then retake the mock training course again. And y'all may say, well, is it just a written course? I'm a really bad test taker. I can't, test very well. If you're able to pass the first aid mock scenario, we're going to have a person who's they're all dummy, dummy people, so they're not real human beings that you'd be working on. If you can work on them after studying, reviewing the courses, the training lessons from trained personnel that will have teach you, and not hesitate, and you pass with flying colors on everything that's physically and verbally communicating on how to operate stuff effectively and efficiently, and you make a 70 on your test, that's good enough for us. But if you're not able to act on your feet, and you're thinking, oh God, what do I do here? That's a 0. Because you can't hesitate when someone's choking. You can't sit there and go, what do I do? Because if you're the only person there, and little Johnny's choking, and he's barely coughing because they don't have a whole lot of lung capacity, and you hesitate for about 4 minutes trying to figure out what to do, well, little Johnny's just going to sit there, his head drooped over, not say anything. That means he's passed out or dead. Okay? So this is why we take this so seriously here at the camp. And we want y'all to be successful and we want y'all to succeed, but our youth is our main priority. Okay? Each of these courses will last approximately about an hour long. So they're fairly, relatively long, but I mean, it will go by pretty fast. Okay? And with that, that's the end of the orientation I have for y'all today. I appreciate every one of y'all to coming out this evening and listening and taking notes. And I appreciate y'all wanting to volunteer with Heart Texas Wildlife. I know y'all going to have a great time, and kids show up in about 3.5 weeks from now. So it's right around the corner. We're going to have a blast. It's going to be a good year. And I appreciate every one of y'all for coming out. And I hope y'all have a great rest of y'all's day. And I'm going to let y'all get out of here and go do whatever y'all want. Enjoy y'all Sunday tomorrow. And thank y'all so much for coming. And I'll see y'all on Monday at 8 a.m. Have a good one. Thank you.